Back is Inkarnate and Trauma Dom. Trauma Dom, how the hell are you?
Phenomenal today, Incarnate. Phenomenal today.
Good to hear. I think, man, as I've told everyone before, as I've told Trauma Dom, as I mentioned in my gut reaction to the film that we're about to cover now, I was completely sold on the idea that, hey, I'll obviously keep reviewing movies throughout 2023. I will continue to do the Mind Games live streams of survival horror games. I will continue to do Mind's Eye Theater as anniversaries of classics of the past. But I thought that 2023 would be a done deal the moment that we wrapped Evil Dead Rise, and we're not quite sure yet whether or not that assessment was incorrect, but we are now back for a second round of PreCaution Aftershock, where we do a preview of a movie before we go watch it as this precaution, and then we do an aftershock, which is basically immediately following our viewing of said film. We do a bit of a feedback roundup. For the second time in the Mind's Eye history, we're doing it. We are risking it with the Boogeyman. I think that it's a calculated risk. I think that I'm optimistic about this movie. Whenever we do our watch parties, we always do something I like to call the totem pole, where we rank a movie based on either previous experience or expectations in case one of us hasn't seen it. It goes bottom of the barrel, shallow grave, or
High stakes.
high stakes. Thank you for interrupting me. I'm kidding. Or high stakes. I'm gonna go on a limb, go out on a limb, and say I'm gonna put this one at high stakes. What are your impressions of this film? What are your what's your preview of it? What are your expectations or predictions for this movie, Trauma Dom?
I'm going with high stakes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good to hear.
I never give anything that much credit.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, Evil Dead really turned me upside down. I thought we were done.
Right.
I genuinely thought we were done.
I was convinced. What from the trailer have you seen that you actually like? The Boogeyman.
What I thought was interesting that I always think it kills the movie is that it automatically came out as like a creature feature.
You think that kills the movie?
Sometimes.
Really? That's
Sometimes.
interesting.
I like a little suspense.
I'm not following.
Sometimes it's just nice to know that there's something out there. You don't quite know what it is.
Yeah.
You don't have a full idea. But just seeing the face of that.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it doesn't show too much, but it just shows you enough that it's a creature feature. And it's a tough thing to pull off.
Agreed, because it can come off as goofy. And nowadays, we are afforded so few, how can I put it? We are afforded so few, like, iconic appearances for these creature types. It's wild to me, because it's like, dude, everybody loves the 80s. That's why we get so much, to the point that we have a real thing called 80s exploitation, which I personally hate, but everybody wants to emulate the 80s. Okay. If they paid homage to the 80s without trying to rip it off, they would see that, hey, there are a lot of familiar faces that came out of the 80s. Hellraiser, Aliens, Predator, Freddy, Jason, The Fly, bro, here's an idea. How about you make memorable creatures? How about you make those iconic moments? How about you have a gripping storyline? How about you have interesting survivor characters? I do hope that this film does they deliver on the character piece, because you never know. I thought that they did that with what do you call it? Evil Dead Rise. I know that we both know that they completely blew it when it came to Megan. I could not I could have only given the most infinitesimal molecule of a crap about the little girl and her aunt. Well, the relationship between them. The little girl I couldn't have given a crap about. I hope they make, you sympathize with this daughter. I did sympathize with the kid in Evil Dead Rise. Considering that the Boogeyman is obviously tied to children, my hope is that they deliver on the character piece because, and hold on to your butts, horror fans, but this actually does matter, and this is what slasher movies has utterly destroyed. You don't give a crap about the characters because slasher movies have just become all about bloodshed. So you don't. Why invest in a character that you're gonna off anyway? Novel prospect. Here, how's about you don't want your characters to die? For instance, when we saw Evil Dead Rise, and I know this is about the Boogeyman. When we saw Evil Dead Rise, I was rooting for the mom. I was like, man, is she gonna be able to break out of this? Is she gonna be saved by the end?
Yeah.
So, considering that the movie, The Boogeyman, it obviously has to do with children, I am hoping that they give us enough interesting, sympathetic, relatable characters that we care about because again, with slasher movies, you just get bloodletting now, which is amusing to me because they're not slasher movies aren't technically supposed to be about gore. Bloodletting, okay, but they've gone like full carnage with these things. Scream very much included. Anyway,
but not for nothing, it is like the B-rated actors now. All these movies that have the B-rated actors stand supreme. Mm-hmm. Evil Dead, going back to that, because I just will never give up on that. Right. Like, Alyssa Sutherland knocked it out of the park.
Right. So I am hoping that the Boogeyman, they do deliver on the characters, because if it is going to be tied to childhood, and obviously there is a child and a teenager in this movie, my hope is that they're able to deliver on that. Make us care about these characters, make us relate to them. So that's my expectation for it. I said it in my gut reaction, and I think it bears repeating. In the 2000s, there were movies like this that had boogeymen type figures, the Tooth Fairy, or these emaciated creature-looking entities from like seemingly another dimension. In the movie They, those movies like almost hit the mark, but not quite. They're kind of just they're kind of like run of the mill in that decade, and they don't stand out. This movie gives off a feel like them while seemingly delivering on the scare factor, on the fear factor of the promise that those movies could have held. My hope is that, like, look, I don't go into anything blindly. I look for reasons to like something. So to me, my hope is that the Stephen King pedigree actually pays off, because, folks, we've seen plenty of recent Stephen King movies that have just been blah. And I think that I mentioned this to Trauma Dom. I think that the fact that this particular movie doesn't have that Stephen King, it doesn't have like decades of fan worship or presence within the public conscience, such as a Pet Sematary, The Shining. I think that's why, despite the Stephen King name, this isn't getting a lot of exposure. But
this wasn't a novel.
It was written by story. Right. Regardless, yeah. It was written by Stephen King. So I'm hoping that Stephen King was able to have drafted an interesting enough storyline for the writers and directors to build upon that and deliver their own kind of style to this story to add to the substance that already exists. So I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping that they deliver on the character front. I'm curious as to see what the story is, because, okay, we know that and considering that this movie has an adult, that creepy looking polka dot man from, what is this, that crappy Suicide Squad sequel, it seems as though there will be some kind of psychological element to this in terms of like forensics. I did hear that the father is a psychologist, so here's hoping that they are able to have an interesting creature design, characters, as I mentioned, relatable characters that we care about, as well as a good story. Now, I just did a watch party just this week I celebrated the 15-year anniversary of the thriller, The Strangers. That is one of those single location type of horror stories. They were able to get a lot of mileage out of that single location with two survivor characters as well as 3 killers. I'm hoping it's not just traumatic events that are discussed during the day and then jump scares at night. I'm hoping that there's more of a plot to it, because it's all these little things, it's all these intangibles that can put a good story over the top into a classic. Now, that might be too much, asking too much that for this movie to be an instant hit. I'm just saying that it's all of these little details, like attention to detail, that can put meat on the bones of a story and put it into that status. And that's my hope for this movie. I'm going in, like I said, with an expectation for high stakes. If it's a classic, an instant hit, I will happily say so. But I don't go into any movie needing it to be good or great. My hope is that it is that. I hope that they're able to use, childhood experiences like a slumber party, which the teasers kind of showed. I'm hoping that they're able to show that and then display a level of nuance with each of these scenes. So I'm very much optimistic. I ask that you come right back. We're on our way to the theater now. I hope that all of you are have high expectations for this. I hope that you actually go to support it, because to me the worst thing is always when crappy movies get any kind of celebration or exposure and then the good ones fly under the radar. See also Antlers, see also The Cursed. Trauma Dom, do you have any final thoughts before we head out?
None. I'm way too amped to get there.
Gotcha.
Way too amped. This is either going to be everything I think it's going to be, or it's going to suck.
You think so? You think it's either a binary?
It's got to be really dull for it to be real. I mean, honestly, with this much hype, for it to be dull would just be a disappointment to me.
Gotcha. It's crazy also that this movie seemingly came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It kind of they had a teaser trailer 4 months ago, I want to say, which caught my attention and just made me curious. I wasn't cautiously optimistic yet. What really sold me was the trailer. Yeah. I thought that the trailer did a good job. It had they made excellent use of sound and sight, and the melody that they play throughout, the clever use of light, where it just shines on whatever person is in a dark room without illuminating the surrounding area, which I thought was interesting because you can't get to see what is around them.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the light might be protecting just them, just at that moment, but whatever's in the shadows is certainly lurking, and the light can serve to shine a light on them, so whatever is hiding in the darkness can obviously see them. So there's kind of that eerie feel to it. I'm wondering, I'm gonna guess that the light keeps them away. Obviously, it's the boogeyman.
Yes.
Before we go, I did see something in the trailers where it looked almost like blood vessels or very long hair in the shape of veins that were forming on the walls in when one particular character was looking up the stairs. So, I almost forgot about that. To me, I don't think whenever a new monster is presented, it's annoying to me because what I like as much as the look of a monster are the rules. And what I mean by that is I always go back to vampires and werewolves. vampires and werewolves come with rules. When the werewolf turns when the moon is out. The vampires have an aversion to sunlight. A vampire can be killed with a stake. A werewolf can be, repulsed by wolfsbane. So that, I'm hoping that we get a lore with this boogeyman. Not exposition. God, please don't sit us down and say, well, the boogeyman doesn't like A, and if you use B, you can get rid of said boogie. No. God, no. Exposition is terrible. The exposition is for your basic bitch movies like Megan and Scream 6. Yeah, I said it. And obviously, we'll get a certain level of exposition when that polka dot man, Dark Knight, weird looking guy shows up, because he looks like he has been traumatized since he was a kid. We're gonna get a level of exposition. That's what I expect. But
I just don't think he's been given enough time to shine.
I hope that the whole movie isn't that. I very much would appreciate it if they build a certain lore with this boogeyman, because I think that that's what intrigues people. I think that that's what will have. It's part of what makes it memorable. And it's part of the creation. It's part of the world building. It's part of the overall. How can I put it? Makeup of said monster. So I'm hopeful that they thought of that ahead of time and they incorporate that in the movie. And again, that I got from those like hairline vein-looking things that were growing on the wall and the stairs when this creature was around. It's because it just adds a certain level of depth to it. So that's pretty much it for us. We're heading out to the theater for reserved tickets. So this is Inkarnate and Trauma signing off from the Mind's Eye. I've been Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. You're resigned to your fate? Time to subscribe to your fears.